It's Formal Dining Room Friday on Brunch with Brian. As you always know, my loyal brunchers know that on Fridays we always come to you from our formal dining room. So, what I want to talk about today was work for equity. A couple of people have mentioned that. Caleb wanted to have me cover that because he's working on a work for equity deal. So, work for equity is really what? What is work for equity? Work for equity is an exit strategy. It's an exit strategy on a buy and hold or cash flow property. You can call these kind of properties a lot of different things. People call them buy and hold, cash flow. Those are the main two ones probably. There's a lot of different names for the when you're buying it. Now, how you buy it doesn't even matter on a work for equity strategy. Mostly you're going to try to buy it with seller financing with nothing down. So if you're trying to buy it with seller financing with nothing down, but the house is rough, and there's three reasons why you would do a work for equity. Okay, again, a work for equity is an exit strategy for a buy and hold or a cash flowing property. And it's an exit strategy in which you buy the house, you clean it up, but you don't do a lot of repairs. Okay, clean it up, but you're not doing repairs. You're not spending a bunch of money on the property. That's why it's a work for equity. Okay, so what would be, and the house needs some work. Now, usually we draw the line at about $10,000. Okay, it needs $10,000 or less to put it into move-in ready condition. Okay, so that's the idea. The property, we're going to put this property into move-in ready condition. So how we're going to do that is mostly we call it our pretty house polish. So if you don't want to do a pretty house polish, that's when you do a work for equity. So a pretty house polish consists of, sometimes I only say 3 items, but let's say 4. Okay, so there's 4 items to a pretty house polish that you choose not to do and to leave up to your buyer, okay, your work for equity buyer. Another word for a work for equity buyer is what, everybody? Sweat equity. Yes. So sweat equity, again, the purchase strategy, how you're buying the house, it doesn't matter in terms of the exit strategy, the work for equity. All you know is that this is a property that needs $10,000 or less in repairs, and you don't want to do it. Now, there's 3 reasons you don't want to do it. Okay. Sometimes you don't have the money to do it. Sometimes okay, let me go back to the things that it needs. What's a pretty house polish? This is probably what this work for equity house needs. Okay, it needs 4 things. It needs flooring. So this is your pretty house polish crew or your work for equity. This is what you would not do if you're going to do a work for equity property. Okay, so this would be someone who does a flooring contractor. Okay, someone who can do flooring for on the cheap. We used to try to do it for like $1.50 a square foot with carpet. If you can get it for $2 a square foot, I mean, you can get it a buck a square foot. You might be paying too little for the carpet. I don't want really super cheap carpet in there. So usually what you want to do is spend some good money on the pad, because the pad really makes it a big difference. It feels real cushy if you have a nice pad under there. So what you want to spend the money on is the pad, and you're either going to put carpet in there, or if you're going to hold on to this as a rental, you're probably going to want to put what everybody calls LVP in there. That's luxury vinyl plank, and that will last the longest time. Except you can scratch it. The only thing you can do to this stuff is scratch it. Usually if you spill stuff on it and everything, it wipes up. But you can, if you're moving heavy furniture across it, you can scratch it up. So you can give people footy pads when they move in. If you want them to take care of your floors and say, hey, any heavy furniture, go ahead and put these little pads on the feet, so you can move the furniture around on the luxury vinyl plank without scratching it. But the flooring contractor, that's one thing. So if you walk into a house and you say, oh, this carpet is definitely worn out, but you don't want to fix it, and it's going to take $3,000. So carpet is one. Flooring contractor. Number 2 is paint. Interior paint though. I don't want to mess with exterior paint. If you're painting the outside of the house, it starts to look a lot more like a rehab, not just a work for equity exit strategy property. Okay, so they probably will have to paint. Sometimes we will actually do what we call a whole tail, where we'll actually paint it and do a little tiny bit of work. But that, again, that's our pretty house polish. Okay, that's if you hear the word whole tail, they're talking about a pretty house polish. Now, what's the third component of that? The third component of a pretty house polish is landscaping. Okay, so you can spend a lot of money on landscaping. You can spend at least a couple thousand on landscaping pretty quickly. So, you know, careful about the landscaping bill. Mostly we don't do a lot of stuff in the backyard. We do stuff in the front yard. I'm exciting today, aren't I? I'm thrilling myself. So we do stuff in the front yard is what we do, but usually we don't mess too much with the backyard unless it's glaringly bad. You know, so we will do on a pretty house polish. We might put $1,000 or something like that into cleaning up the yard and doing some nice landscaping. Okay, then the fourth thing is countertops. And the way why I say sometimes three things, sometimes four things, because of that's why is because of a lot of times you don't do the countertops, especially if it's a house in a lower price range, like a $60,000 or $70,000 house. It may not be worth it to do granite countertops unless you have a really cheap guy. So again, I want you to look up granite remnants. Do a search in your city for granite remnants and see if you can find a place that's cheap. They call them boneyards, where they got big stacks of granite piled up like a bookshelves almost. It looks kind of cool. So sometimes you can find big slabs where you can get it cheap, and you can find someone who can put it in pretty cheap. If you can get if you can get the kitchen countertops and both bathroom vanities, if it's a 2-bathroom, you get both bathroom vanities and the kitchen counters done for $2,000, that's worth it. Okay. But if you're spending $5,000, it's not worth it. Okay, so find a good place, good people can put in granite, or look at some of the good deals on counters, because sometimes that's a swing thing. It looks a lot better when you put in those new counters. And then so those are the four things that you don't want to do on a work for equity. You don't want to do flooring. You don't want to do interior paint. You don't want to do landscaping. You don't want to do the countertops. So here's why you don't want to do it. Okay. Sometimes the reasons to do work for equity exit strategy. Number one, you don't have the money to fix up the house. So sometimes, you don't got 8 or 10 grand sitting around. And so you just, now I'm going to tell you that you make more money if you do the repair. So if the people move out and you can fix it up, and if you got, a few days before you turn it around, where you can get your flooring contractor and your painter and your landscaper and your countertop guy over there, if you can do it, in a few days, and it costs you 8 grand, you can be probably asked 20 grand more for the house. Probably that's going to be your markup. Probably that's going to be your markdown if you're selling on work for equity. That's not always the case. Obviously, there's $100,000 houses and there's $300,000 houses. So, but you're gonna mark down the price, not that much. All right, so not that much. Let's say that thing needs, if you think it needs 5,000 in work, maybe you'll take 10,000 off the retail price. So maybe 10,000 under what you think the property is worth. But a lot of times it's amazing. You can ask almost retail price for these work for equity houses when you do what? When you provide financing. Remember, these are people who can't qualify at a normal bank. It's people who are willing to do the work themselves. And your ad says, when you're advertising a work for equity property, and again, this is a property that you buy that needs some work, but it's not a big, huge rehab. Someone could actually move into the house and do the work while they're living in there. So that's why I say it's usually flooring, paint, landscaping and countertops, things like that. Okay, so it's cosmetic stuff. So when they move in there, you make an agreement with them to do the work. So the reasons that you don't want to do the work yourself is you can't afford it right now. Okay. Number two is you don't have the time. You want to get a check really fast, and if you do the pretty house polish, it's going to put you back, a week. It shouldn't put you back more than a week. You should be hopefully organized enough where you can do a pretty house polish and it won't put you back more than a week. Hopefully it doesn't put you back at all. The idea is to buy the house, get it under contract, and 14 to 16 days later be picking up a paycheck on that house. So if you skip that process of doing the fix up, you don't even have to skip it. If you're well organized, you can do the fix up and still sell in 14 to 16 days. However, again, if you don't want to take the time and you're not really well set up where you don't have people just at the ready, if your flooring guy says, well, I'll be able to get to it in 3 weeks, that's when you might say, okay, you know what, let's just put this up as a work for equity and see what happens. So knock a little bit off the price. And then when you're advertising it, and then the last reason is if you don't have the willpower. So those are the 3 reasons why we do work for equities. If you don't have the money to do it right now, if you don't have the time to do it right now, or if you don't have the will, you just don't want to do it. Maybe sometimes it's you got 2 properties at the same time and your crew is working on one, and the other one, they're not going to get to it for another week or something. And you want to put them both up on the same weekend. Sometimes something like that will happen. So when you're putting a work for equity out there, again, work for equity or sweat equity is just an exit strategy on a property that you've already bought. Does it matter how you buy it? Well, you'd like to buy it for nothing down on some kind of seller financing or subject to. That would be the ideal situation, because then you would buy a house for just closing costs and you wouldn't pour any money into the fix up except maybe a little cleanup, maybe a couple $100, few $100, cleaning up the yard, getting the junk out of the house. Okay, something like that. But that's why you leave it as a work for equity, because you don't have the money or the willpower or the time to do it. And so you're just going to put it up, you're going to put it in Zillow. Now, when you advertise it in Zillow, and this is what our signs say. So we always get a lot of traffic off roadside signs, bandit signs, when we're selling. Probably half the traffic we get is off roadside signs, but we put out a decent amount of signs. And the sign we put out for this type of property, it says handyman special at the top, handyman special. Then under that, it says rent to own, comma, bad credit okay. Okay, rent to own, comma, bad credit okay. That's the second line. So the top line is handyman special. That means what? It means it needs a little work, and you should be a handyman if you're going to call. And so handyman special, that gets the people, it tells them what kind of property it is. Then they say, and then it says, when it says rent to own, bad credit okay, that's what they don't expect. So they can buy a house if they're willing to do the work, even with lousy credit. Now, do they have to have some money down, and do they have to have some money to fix up the house? Yes. And that's the key. But their credit situation doesn't, bother me. Now, what's the great thing about work for equities? The truth is that, some as well-intentioned as everybody is, sometimes people don't go through with the deal. You'll put somebody in a house, give them a lease purchase deal, a work for equity deal. Now, a work for equity, write this down. A work for equity deal is just a lease purchase exit strategy where they agree to do the work. That's really all it is. So it's a lease purchase. They're still leasing it with an option to buy. Okay, so it's a lease purchase or a rent to own property, but they probably have bad credit or can't qualify for whatever reason. However, they do have money to fix the house up and money to give you a down payment. So remember, either it's their non-refundable option deposit that they give you. It becomes their down payment when they get qualified down the road. So what's the great news about these work for equities is that sometimes they don't go through with it, but they move in there and they do a bunch of work on it and they fix it all up and make it nice. And then they say, oh, I'm sorry, we can't move in or we can't buy it because of this or that, and we're moving. We're getting a divorce. We have to, we're moving out, whatever it is, job transfer, we're moving out. And then what happens? You go into that house and whatever work they did, you're getting back a better house than what you gave them. So that's the crazy thing. They do all the work at their own expense. And if they don't go through with the purchase, you get this gorgeous house. Now, if you want to decide to give them some of their non-refundable option deposit back, that's totally up to you. If they poured, tons of money into the property and now they have to move out and it's sad, we have been known to give people some money back, more me than Lynette. Lynette's tough. on stuff like this, but I'm more flexible on this. So it's up to you guys how you do your business. Now, did you get that ad though? Write that ad down for sure, because this is what you put on the signs: handyman special, rent to own, comma, bad credit okay, and then the phone number. And you will get tons of calls. There's a lot of people who are in the trades who would love to get a deal on a house and who have some money to work with and who have lousy credit or can't get qualified. So there's a big need for this type of property. And if you're finding these type of properties, that's great. If you can find a whole bunch of them and move them quick without having to do the work, and you're finding good people, that's great. And basically you're just taking a little bit off the price, and you're going to net out maybe close to what you would have netted out anyway. Okay, but it is a little bit easier. I will tell you that if you do the work, usually this house will sell faster, it'll show nicer, and you can ask maybe 10 or 20,000 over the Zestimate without flinching, depending on the price range. Okay, so that's a lot of information about work for equities. If there's anything I didn't cover, let me know. Good morning. I know Caleb was asking about that work for equity program. Guys, we do now. Remember, in the what to say and what to do system, there's all 7 deals, all 7 types of deal. So work for equity is in there. Work for equity is deal number 3. Okay. You know what? Usually the ones we do work for equity on are when we have 2 houses at the same time, and we just want to put them both back out at the same time. And so we can't get them both done at the same time. So we'll just leave one and fix one and see what happens. Okay. Sometimes that'll be the case. Usually, because we are relatively organized and have a good crew that we can, with a couple of phone calls, get work done. They already know all of our paint colors. They know our flooring needs. They know what to do. So we just give them an address and basically they get the job done. So we're pretty well set up where we can do these fixes up. But if you're not as well set up, you may do more work for equities. I do like to usually do the work because yes, you can probably ask 20 grand more if you put 5 grand in. So, but again, that's purchase price isn't even the big thing on these deals. Usually the terms are the big thing. So consider this exit strategy again if you don't have the money to fix up that house, if you don't have the time to fix it up, or if you don't have the willpower. That's when you do a work for equity strategy. Okay. Let's see. Good morning. Less than 10, right? Usually pretty house polish or work for equity. More than 10 would be called, yes. You got it, Tony. So guys, your exit strategy, if it's more than 10 grand, I mean, if this thing needs a new roof, it needs exterior paint, it needs new cupboards, it needs a new toilet, then we're talking about a rehab. It's going to be over $10,000 to do. And then you're either going to wholesale it or go through with the whole rehab and probably get some kind of financing on it. Okay. So if it's really wrecked up, like needs $40,000 in work, that's not a work for equity. Nobody's going to want to move in there and do $40,000 worth of work. I'm not saying you can't push this. You can push it. It can be a little more than cosmetic work, but if it's unlivable, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a house that somebody could actually fix up while they're living in there. Okay. Yes, you got it, Tony. So Tony understands those exit strategies. You guys all get it, right? Now that's a good point. Now it changes the overall purchase price because the house doesn't show as well. Let's say it's I think it's $150,000 house. If it's beat up to the tune of, 5 or 10 grand, it needs those 4 things. It needs flooring, paint, interior paint. It needs landscaping and it needs countertops. And we don't want to do it. I'm probably going to knock 10. I'm probably going to look at what I think what the property is worth, and then I'm going to probably take off about 10,000. Again, it depends. If it's a $300,000 house, I'm probably taking off, let's say taking off 5 to 10%. That's maybe a good way to look at it. So if you have a $300,000 house, I'm probably going to knock off 5% is 15 grand. I'll probably, if I think it's worth 300, I'll probably put it out there at maybe 279.9 or something like that. So 20 grand off maybe for a more expensive house like that. Somewhere between that 5 to 10% range would be your discount on the property. I mean, if it's a $50,000 house, you know, a 10% discount, you're going to offer it at 45 instead of 50. So that's not a huge, you know, discount on a cheaper house, but it can be a pretty significant discount on a more expensive house. But somewhere in that 5 to 10% range, I'd say would be your discount on the property, depending on how messed up it is. And then in terms of the down payment, usually what do we say on a down payment, guys? We say, what's the most you can put down on your beautiful new home? Okay, now this isn't a beautiful new home, is it? No. So you say, how much can you put down on your nice new house? We still say nice because it's nice. It just needs work, but it's nice. So we still say nice. We don't say beautiful though. So we say on your nice new house, and it's new to them, so it's new. So we always say new. So how much can you put down on your nice new house? And then they'll give us a number. Okay. And here's the thing. I am usually happier with the smaller number if I know they're doing the work. Sometimes you get really lucky and the people have a good nest egg. They have enough money to give you 15 grand down and have the money to fix the house. But I am more flexible on non-refundable option deposits on work for equity properties. We'll take less on one, you know, maybe 10,000 instead of wanting to get 15 or 20,000. There's that 10,000 is a certain number that I just like to get down because it gives me that warm, safe feeling. So I do like to get 10 grand down on any property, including work for equity. But if it's a $50,000 house that needs, you know, 5,000 in work, that's, you know, I'm not going to get 10 grand down on that. I might get 5 grand down and be happy. Okay. So again, it depends a little bit on your price range, but instead, normally what do we always shoot for is 10% down. I might be a little more flexible and take closer to 5% down. So again, our goal is to always get about 10% down. I might be a little more flexible. So it's funny that both of them are 5 to 10%, but that's about the discount. So about 5 to 10% off the purchase price. And then instead of getting 10% down, which we like to do on a move-in ready property, we'll be more flexible and take as little as 5% on a work for equity house, because I want them to have money to fix it up. I want them to use their money to fix it up. Remember, it's not your money that's fixing up a work for equity property. Happy Friday. Great to see you, Jennifer. Oh, always so nice to see. Hey, JPEG. Okay. All right. So definitely be coming back. I always want to see you here. I hope I don't look tired. I just yawned there, right? Thinker Brian, thought your upcoming monthly payment to the seller approaching, having a hard time finding a work for equity buyer, and you have no cash. Okay. I don't like lowering my purchase price. You know what? I would redouble my marketing. I would market a lot more. Usually it's not that hard to find a work for equity buyer. So if you are struggling with, there may be some kind of a location issue with the property. So, you got your monthly payment to the seller. You know what? And this is where, now I don't like to do this, but, and I've only ever had to do it once, but what if you buy a house, get it under contract, you're trying to market it. Usually these houses go very quickly because you can put bad credit okay in the ad. When you can put bad credit okay in the ad, that usually gets a lot of people responding, and usually somebody has at least 5 grand. Okay. So if somebody's got 5 grand in a pulse, I really want 10 grand. I'm thinking about cheaper houses now. So if we're talking about $60,000, $70,000 house, I could live with 5 grand down if I'm confident they're going to do the work. Now, the one thing I haven't talked about yet is what about a work schedule? And yes, I do want you to do that. We made a mistake on that and trusted people in the beginning and just said, okay, it's your house, so fix it up at your own pace. But what would happen? Sometimes they would be in there for just a year or 2 years, and then they would move out, and I would have taken a smaller non-refundable option deposit because I want them to have money to do the fixes, and then they don't do any of the fixes. So then we get the property back in a year and a half, and I think the house is going to be bankable where I could sell it for to a cash buyer because they're supposed to have fixed it up. But it's still all, it's still all messed up. We had a property in Baton Rouge like this that got flooded, and we thought, of course, they're going to fix the drywall and all that stuff. Year and a half later, we go in there and they're like wanting to move out and they haven't done anything. So I do want you, if you're doing a work for equity or sweat equity deal, I want you to definitely make some kind of a work schedule, okay, of what needs to be done and more or less some kind of deadlines. And they don't have to be real soon. They could be a year away, but just put them on some kind of schedule. Okay. Otherwise, it's amazing how this stuff doesn't get done. Okay. So that's a good tip from the field, somebody who knows and has done it. If you can't sell a house, and like I was started to say, this doesn't happen almost never, but I can't say it never happens where you get a house under contract, your first payment's coming up to the seller, and there's other questions I have about this. Did you already close and take ownership of the property, or did you not record the new deed yet? Did you do a lease purchase where you don't even have a deed? Depending on what your deal is with the seller, there was one time ever where I actually called the seller back and said, we're having real trouble getting someone for this house, for your house. And, I hate to say this, and we might not be able to go through with the deal, and I might give you the house back. Okay. Remember, that's like worst case scenario. You don't lose money, but it might be an uncomfortable phone call given, saying, hey, I couldn't find somebody. Now, this has almost never happened, so I don't even like talking about it because it's pretty rare that you can't find somebody, especially for a work for equity house that you're giving a good deal on. But if it's really messed up and people are a little bit too like, well, or if it really stinks, remember, always take the stink out. Use poof, P-O-O-P-H. When you're doing a work for equity, don't leave stink in the house. I mean, it doesn't take long to spray that poof stuff around. So definitely use poof, P-O-O-P-H. That's a really good product for getting the stink out. Never, even if you're selling a house that's a little rough, never let it stink. It doesn't have to stink. You can cheaply remove the stink, and that makes a massive difference. Okay, so there's a lot of kind of factors that play into your exit strategy. But again, if you're advertising it properly and putting a whole bunch of signs around, that's my favorite strategy. Put at least 20 signs out there that say handyman special, bad credit okay, rent to own, bad credit okay, and the phone number. If you put about 20 signs out like that, we've never not gotten a ton of calls off of that. Plus in Craigslist, you definitely want to have it in Craigslist under work for equity and or sweat equity. Now that's the other thing. What paperwork do we use? We have a special sweat equity agreement. Okay, it's just like the lease purchase exit strategy agreement, but it says sweat equity on it, and it has an extra clause in there where it says that they have to take care of all the maintenance and the repairs. Okay, so don't forget, if you need that agreement, let us know. Contact the office. Let us know if you need to get that agreement, and I will send it along. Okay. Great comments, everybody, today. Yes, handyman special. That's the sign, guys. Handyman special, and then on line 2, rent to own, bad credit okay, and then on line 3, your phone number. Okay, we don't usually put our website address on there because people, they go on the internet and get lost. So I don't like that. And phone number, exactly. Okay, great info. Good, because I'm helping you guys. Thank you, Jennifer. You're being very kind. And guys, if you are really working at a massive deficiency if you don't have the what to say and what to do system. I mean, yes, we created it, but it is really the greatest system for real estate investing and really covers all the deals with all the scripts and all the steps. So if you're doing a work for equity deal, pull up that step-by-step checklist. It's in your what to do manual. Remember, it's a what to say and what to do system. So all the scripts are in the what to say manuals. In the what to do manuals is the checklist. So you've got a checklist, a one-page checklist for every step on the work for equity deal. Make sure you're following that when you're doing a work for equity deal. And then this is the one time when we sell a property on lease purchase, we never go inspect it. We just set it and forget it. Hopefully they never call us and they just keep sending in the payment every month. That's the goal. But this is one where you could schedule inspections if you want. I mean, if you have a repair schedule that you want them to adhere to, the only excuse me, I got yawning and sneezing. The only way you're going to get them to, to respond to the schedule is if you tell them you're going to do inspections. So if you're giving them a schedule and you say, okay, we'd like to have all the flooring done within 2 months. We'd like to have all the interior paint done within 1 month, or whatever it is. You can give them all the time you want. That's one reason why I don't like to do schedules. I don't want to really push them. I want them to take their time. I usually have good seller financing and I want them to take a while. So that's why sometimes I don't give them a schedule, and I just trust that they're going to do it at their own pace. Okay. So, but yes, if I am giving them a schedule, or if I have a short time from the seller, if I only have a 3-year balloon payment coming to that seller, then definitely I'm going to do inspections and I'm going to give them a schedule. If I don't have 10 years or something, then I'm going to babysit their repairs. And yes, I will be checking on them. All great questions today. All interesting information, guys. So remember, work for equity deal is just one of the 7 deals. You're buying the property the same as you would buy it as if it was a lease purchase. So you're buying it with seller financing subject to, or now this is one you do not buy on a lease purchase though. You don't want you or someone you have put in the property to do a bunch of work and only be leasing the house. The actual original owner might look at it or realize they're doing all this great work, and they might give you trouble when you try to close on it down the road. So on a lease purchase, we don't do work for equity, okay, because you don't own the house. If you're going to do a work for equity, make sure you get the deed or get the door. Get the deed or get the door. Wow, lots of good tips today on doing work for equity. Yeah, we should put this one somewhere. It's a lot of good training. So guys, keep this one, store it somewhere. Keep the link somewhere in a folder where, these things don't disappear off YouTube, or so just, get the YouTube link, store it somewhere in your files so you always know where to get great work for equity information. Holy cow, I've never gone this long. Sorry guys, it was a big topic. I literally have never gone this long, so I apologize, but lots of info today. So I love work for equities, okay? That's our affirmation for today. Ready? 3 times on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I love work for equities. I love work for equities. I love work for equities. Yes. All right, great, guys. Let's start deep breathing. Nice deep breath in. Hold it a little bit and let it go. Another deep breath in. With a smile and let it go. One more deep breath in. Always a big smile. Let it go. You're going to keep smiling all weekend. Where are you on your 20 call KPI? Are you close? So if you're not close, you may have to make 20 calls starting today. So again, 20 calls a week. Usually we start on Monday, so you might have 2.5 days of important calls to make. All right, so let's have a great weekend, productive weekend. I love your questions. I love your participation. I love it when you guys ask me, I take requests. Ta-da, I take requests. I used to be a DJ in the 80s and I always took requests. So yes, I take requests. So if you guys want me to talk about a specific topic, and I know Caleb has a work for equity he's working on, then I understand. And Caleb, if you want to send me an email, and guys, if you ever want to send me an email, wolfcouple@gmail.com or support@thewolfcouple.com. Either way, and then let me respond to you and give you extra help if you need it on a deal. Okay, so until I see you on Monday, what are you going to do? You're going to keep expecting success, getting awesome training from the Wolf Couple, and taking